Hi everyone, welcome back to Brookdale Farm. We're just doing a little bit more spraying today. We've got another couple of hectares to spray out, and then we're going to plant oats in this paddock here, and peas down the other end of it. And I just thought I would talk about the pre-emergent herbicides that we use. Now, a pre-emergent herbicide is a chemical that we put on either before planting or just after planting to help control the weeds. So this paddock here has been burnt. This had wheat in it last year, and we've burnt most of the stubble. There's a little bit still going on. But if we have a look down here, this is one of the header trails where all the stuff came out the back of the harvester at harvest time. And we've burnt all the stubble that was on the top. We had a relatively cool burn through here. But if we look closely, we can see there's a lot of wheat husk in here. There's the odd wheat grains still. I think that's one there. Yep. And so the harvester does throw out a fair bit of seed out the back. There's also all the weed seed in here. So we can see this little fine stuff here is ryegrass that's starting to germinate. Now, one solution is to do a really hot burn to try and burn all the weed seed in here. Unfortunately, the weed seed all ends up on the bottom. There is a gentleman down at Cookeran in Western Australia who has developed a device for the back of his harvester that dumps all the weed seed on top. So the straw's underneath, the weed seed's on top, and it's much easier to burn the weed seed then. Now the pre-emergent, well, firstly we're going to put down a knockdown spray. So that's going to kill things like this wheat plant here and wild oats and all of this ryegrass here. It will kill anything that's currently green. What it won't do is stop the rest of this seed from germinating. The pre-emergents are designed to either sit in the soil and stop certain things germinating, or to kill them as they do germinate. So it really helps with all of this stuff so that we don't get big weed trails down where our harvester went. So in oats, this is the product we use as a pre-emergent. The active ingredient is Metallicore, and this is for the control of certain annual grasses and broadleaf weeds in certain crops. Very non-specific, but there's a book on the back of every chemical packet that gives you all the information you need. So this helps to control the radish, which we've got a big problem with in this paddock, and also the ryegrass and wild oats. Now this product is great. It's very tolerant of almost anything you do to it. It can be mixed with your knockdown. In this case we're using glyphosate, but you might also be using spray seed or something like that. It can be mixed with all of them and go on now when we kill all of this grass stuff before we plant the crop. And it can sit on the surface for a while. It doesn't really break down particularly fast, which is both good and bad. Or we can spray this on after we have planted the crop, within 4 days of planting the seed, but before heavy rain. So you want a good rain on it to wash it into the soil, and that coats all the seed that's on the ground here, and helps to stop it germinating. The only thing you can't do with this is mix it up in your sprayer and leave it sitting. It turns into a horrible white chalky mix that's really hard to get out again. So this is for the oats. Quite a good chemical, works fairly effectively, fairly tolerant of anything you do with it. Now for the wheat, we use this stuff. It's triflurin is the active ingredient. It's a horrible chemical. It's bright yellow, and when you mix it up, it stains everything yellow, and it does not really wash out. So you can still see it on the sprayer in places. If we come round to the sight glass, you can see a bit of yellow, and that's from trifluorine last year. It also makes a horrible yellow cloud when you're spraying it. This chemical here, most people say is not effective anymore. And generally, okay, there is resistance to it in this area because it's an old chemical and everybody's used it probably since the 1970s now, I think. But this chemical is really fussy about how you put it out. So unlike the oat chemical, you've got to be really careful with this one. Now this needs to go onto absolutely bare ground. It needs to then be covered within 24 hours. So you've got to put it down and then seed into it straight away, which is quite hard to do actually. And it's a nuisance for me to use. It usually means I end up doing 2 laps of the paddock spraying and then come back with the seeder and go straight over it, so I know that I'm going to get it covered in time. And it means I'm jumping between equipment all the time to try and make sure I get it covered. So the other thing about trifluorine is it used to work really well when we used to plough the ground, then spray it, and then seed into it with the old type combine seeders. A lot of people say it doesn't work now and part of that is because we don't plough the ground. So although I'm not using it in this paddock, but although I have burnt this paddock, there's still little bits of stubble here, and there's bits of green stuff here, and anything else that touches it neutralizes it. So whatever lands on these weeds here or on this stubble here is neutralized and is not effective. The other thing that has changed, this is a seeding point off my old seeder. My old seeder was on 4-inch wide spacings, so you've got a row of seed here and another row of seed here. The points are this wide, and then often you had a row of tillage points in the front, 2 rows of seeding points, and then another row of tillage points behind. So by the time you've got all of them, you're on 2-inch spacings, and you can see that there is no undisturbed piece of ground. The trifluorine was incorporated and covered in the ground by the ground really well, without any gaps in it. So this is what we used to use. Now we are using these points here, which are called knife points, and we use them somewhere between 4-inch spacings and up to 12-inch spacings. So if we've got one line here and one line here, this far apart, it doesn't cover the ground in between. So all of the trifluorine in between here gets broken down by the sunlight and atmosphere and is completely ineffective. Now these knife points do give you a bit of soil disturbance, so if you've got them close enough together, you can still use trifluorine and it will cover. But if you've got them on a big wide spacing, there's no way that trifluorine is going to work. So that is one of the other reasons that it is just not effective anymore. Anyway, whenever you're using any of these products, it's really important to read the label carefully so you know how to apply it to get the maximum benefit from it. All of this stuff costs money. If you're putting it down on the ground in the wrong way, you've just blown $200, $400, up to $800 for 20 litres of this stuff. Trifluorine's fairly cheap, but it does go out. They're recommending 2 litres a hectare now, which is a pretty high rate. It used to be, they used to say about 1 litre per hectare. Now they've gone up to 2 litres. The Duragold, the Metallicore, that only goes out at 500 millilitres per hectare. So It's a little bit more expensive than the triflurin, but it does work out cheaper in the long run. But of course this doesn't work on wheat. So you've got to select the right product for what you're doing, and then be very, very careful to put it down on the ground in the right way. Anyway, I'm going to mix up the chemical into my sprayer now and get going. Okay, so today we are going to be using a glyphosate and our Duragold, Metallicore. Now, with any glyphosate, we always add ammonium sulfate granules as well. So we put these in first, that gives them a good chance to mix. Then we're going to put the glyphosate in at 1.2 litres a hectare. So we've got 7 hectares, so we need 8.2 litres. And our Duragold at half a litre per hectare. So that is 3.5 litres per hectare. So the first thing I'm going to do is start the pump before we start pouring chemical in. Thanks very much for watching. I hope some of you have found this video useful and give you a little bit of an idea about what you need to do when spraying your pre-emergent chemicals. I hope to see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.